This is Ask an Expat with Marcus and Matt from an Expats Russia, where we answer your questions about what it's like to live, work, and travel in Russia.
Welcome to this episode. Today we're going to talk about some of the inconveniences we experienced living in Russia. Marcus, I have a few things that, were hard to get used to when living in Russia, but what are some of the things that you were not a fan of living in Russia, or what was kind of an inconvenience compared to living in the US or Europe?
Yeah, the first one that comes to mind, I would divide them into things that I got used to over time. They weren't such a big deal. And then the ones that I kind of never got used to. The first one is in all of my time living in Russia, I never had a dryer in the apartment. So we would have to wash our clothes, and then we'd have to hang everything up, and they'd dry, and because they're hanging down, they'll dry, and you get that crease across the line, and they're like, some of them are hard like cardboard. So like if you're taking jeans off the line to actually put on right then, you have to kind of like move them around to get out of that cardboard phase. But that was kind of my wife and I just are like, oh man, it's a little bit too much with kids for sure. Maybe I don't remember it being such a big deal when I was single, or my wife and I were just married. But when we had kids and we did the wash all the time, it was a lot of time hanging it up.
Well, I never had kids in Russia, but I know what having kids now is like living now in the US. The biggest problem would be how small the washer is, though. The washer as well. You have this really tiny washer in Russia. I don't know if yours were always small, but ours in Russia,
we always got the biggest, like 7 or 9 kilograms.
Okay, yeah, the ones we always had were 4 or 5 kilograms.
Yeah.
It's tiny.
Well, with kids, it wouldn't really. You'd be washing all day if you got the 4, because they have the 3 to 5, and we always got the 7 to 9 because we had so much to wash.
Interesting. Yeah, I never even thought about that. It was inconvenient just being a couple. I can only imagine what it would be like with multiple kids having those small washers and no dryer. Yeah, it's definitely.
The other thing that I can think about related to clothes is, in Russia you're using public transportation a lot. So in the winters, I didn't mind the winters that much at all. So coming from Oregon, mild climate, I don't really like the heat, but so the winters didn't bother me. But the fact that when the roads get really dirty or the sidewalks get really like mushy with brown, in the big cities, it's that's what you encounter in the big cities. But when you're walking to the subway station, or from the subway station to the office or whatever, that slush can flip up on your pant leg, and it's all dirty, and so you have to do wash, or you have to kind of like brush it off every day for the next day, or your shoes get eaten up if they put salt on the
Oh yeah, my
road.
leather shoes always got destroyed. I tried using the little rubber things you can put over your shoes.
Galoshes.
But there's always so much slush that it would get inside those.
Yeah,
no matter what I did, and it would just ruin the shoes even worse.
So what I ended up doing was I had 2 pairs of shoes, one for the office and one for getting to the office.
Right. That's what everybody does.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say one of the other kind of major inconveniences that you kind of get used to it, right, is just having less space. As an American especially, we're used to having incredible amounts of space. I can think, about my house growing up. We had a basement that was just full of junk, and in Russia you just don't have room for that.
Right.
So you have to be kind of One thing I liked about it was that it taught me to, not keep a bunch of junk around, which I think a lot of Americans are very used to doing. What was interesting, whenever we would come back to visit, there were all of these storage sites. Like you're driving in the US and there's all these like buildings that's just storage for people's junk.
Yeah, you don't have that.
That they can't fit in their big houses.
Yeah.
But in Russia, you kind of learn to live without that.
I can't think of any other blaring inconveniences. I mean, I had things that I wanted, like food. I had cravings that I couldn't.
Sure.
Like in the very beginning, it was hard to find like Reese's or favorite like snacks, Doritos or something like that. But nowadays, you can find them. But I guess that's the next inconvenience. If you have a craving for like a food that you grew up with, to go get it is kind of half a day's work.
Right. Well, I think the only other real inconvenience that I didn't like was around beds. Maybe I'm just like kind of, I don't know, too specific about beds, but I was never able to find, a nice pillow that was really comfortable to sleep on. Like you can just go to a store in the US and, find a nice pillow quite easily, and it's usually cheap. I always found that, or like a mattress topper. When you rent in Russia, the places are always furnished. So you get like this old bed that's been, slept on forever. It's probably 25 years old.
Yeah.
And it's not terrible, right? But just like a mattress topper would make it 10 times better. And it's very hard to find these kinds of things.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what your experience was with beds, but I never had a good experience.
Not super great, but I wasn't very picky about it. I don't remember. I remember like talking to my wife about, we need to get a mattress, and we never got around to it. Because again, what you buy the mattress and then you move to a new apartment, like you have to move that too, right? So it goes back to the
that's
space
why I'm saying
thing.
a mattress topper.
That's another
like in
inconvenience. We had to when we moved, you would have, even if it's down the street. We like the same area. It's southwest part of Moscow. When we moved, it was like such a hassle. But the last time we moved, we're never moving again until we move to our own place. But I think some of the inconveniences, you just get used to them, and they're not that big of a deal after some time.
Right. I think they're more kind of like culture shock type situations, right? It's completely different, and you just, once you live with it for a few months or a year, you just forget about it.
Well, there's the inconveniences you can't change, right? For one that I always thought of, like, if I was in the U.S., I'd just have my car when I would go grocery shopping. Even like, there's a store down the road, 5-minute walk, but you have to like carry the heavy bags. You want to buy for several days in advance. I'm carrying the heavy bags in the snow back to the apartment. By the time I get to the door, I'm like, my arms are all wobbly.
You think like, it's only 2 or 3 kilograms, right, in each bag, but then once you're walking through it and trying not to slip on the ice with the bags in your hand, it gets to be a lot. I remember the biggest inconvenience actually was, you have to really drink bottled water. I don't know if you had a filter. Some people
that was a big one.
We preferred bottled water. So the store, it's not that far away, right? But you go there and then you're lugging this, like huge bottle of water back. It's just not fun. We ended up doing water delivery in the end.
We did that too, yeah.
It was quite
over time. It's just like, let's just have it delivered. The big 20-liter barrels or whatever.
Yep. We got so accustomed to that in Russia that now even in the U.S. we get water delivery.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's very cheap. It's like $20 a month, and they deliver 4 bottles to you.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, like you said, most of it you just kind of get used to, or you learn your own routines around. What my wife and I did with grocery shopping is we just try to go less often, but take a taxi to the bigger store where we could buy everything at once, take the taxi back. But even then, it could still be a pain, right? Because you got the taxi, you both are like filled to the brim with all these all the bags of groceries, right? And then you got to go outside. It's minus 30 degrees, and you're like waiting for the taxi, and he's calling you, and you can't get your phone out of your pocket because you got all the bags in your hand. And not having a car is definitely a pain, especially when you're, the more
Well,
people in your household. I can only imagine as a family.
We had a car. We eventually bought a car, and that was, a major upgrade as far as going grocery shopping for longer time. Like you could always go for a couple days to the nearest one, but you could go to the bigger grocery stores, load up on groceries for the whole week or whatever. But then you had the issue of finding parking so you have these, Russia's so big, but the cities were not really planned out to have so many cars, so that's why the traffic's so bad. But we would,
Right.
You'd have to. I learned how to park in very interesting ways. So, but one thing I was gonna say before I forget it. Did you ever fall on the ice, like have a hard fall?
Yeah, absolutely. In St. Petersburg, it felt like they never cleaned the sidewalks at all where I lived. And I fell, I would see people fall. It was less of a problem in Moscow in my experience, but St. Petersburg, yeah. And it always happened on the worst day. Like you had a bad day, your employer said, "Oh, we don't have money to pay you today," and which is a thing in Russia, unfortunately. And you're going home, and then you slip and fall and hurt yourself, and it would make a bad day really bad.
Right.
But I didn't experience it really at all in Moscow, slipping and falling.
Yeah, I can't remember. I did fall once and hit some mirror on a nice car, and I was worried about the car, but I scraped up my elbow. But I saw people fall all the time. That would be a major inconvenience in the winter for most people.
Right. So those were our kind of inconveniences with life in Russia. If you've lived in Russia, let us know what you think as well. What was hard to get used to for you? This was Ask an Expat with Marcus and Matt from an Expats Russia. We hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have a question about Russia, let us know in the comments. We'll answer it in another video.